going to be a test for me today to be civil to our author, because I've discovered in my research that he went to Berkeley. I went to Stanford, and that's a rivalry to the
Cal.
death.
Go Cal.
Boo, I'm going to bury the axe in your skull.
I have two favorite teams, Cal and whoever's playing Stanford.
Well, we're into this already.
All right, let's go.
Well, anyway, his name is John Lescroart, and I'm very, very pleased to welcome him. And maybe we should start by explaining the name. I may be one of the few people who can actually pronounce it properly.
You do it right. It's John Lescroart. It's the worst name in publishing. I like to think of myself as the Shawshank Redemption of authors. So
it's French, right?
It's French. In the 14th century, there was a bandit who lived in central France named Croquart, C-R-O-Q-U-A-R-T. And this is documented in Barbara Tuchman's book, A Distant Mirror. It's real history.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And his followers were called Les Croquart, L-E-S-C-R-O-Q-U-A-R-T.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha.
You're right. Les Croquarts. So they dropped the Q-U and the S because there's only one of me, or them, or you know what I mean to say. Yeah.
It's
So
a
that's the
wonderful
name.
name. Everybody thinks it's Irish.
Well, I'm Irish, and my first book was Dead Irish, you know, and or the first book in this series. And actually, when I was in Ireland, I was promoting the books there one time, and I believe there is an Irish variant on the name. It's McGrarty, because it means the same thing, and it's the same letters. There was a dressmaker in Dublin, and I was passing McGrarty's shop, and I went M-A-C-G-R-O-A-R-T-Y. And I went, this has got to be my, you know, I went in and I asked, I said, are you related to any Lescroarts in France or England?
Well, you know, you probably are, because there's a big crossover between Brittany, and Ireland. The whole Tristan and Isolde bit, you know, trades on that, and I think it's that Celtic, you know.
Yeah, and if you would have seen me when I was, you know, a younger man with a little bit more hair, which would have been easy to have a little bit more than this, I was pretty red-headed. I mean, pretty dark red hair.
Yeah, but I think it's a Celtic strain that, or Celtic, depending on your viewpoint, that goes on. Well, in any case, I'm sure it's been both an asset because people once learned, not easily forgotten.
Well, you know, you can say it's a bit of an asset, but the first 6 years or so of the career, I really, in fact, to this day, I say if I had it to do over again, I would have just been my mother's maiden name of Gregory. Then I would have been next to Grisham everywhere I went, you know, on the top of the, you know, on the top of the racks in all the bookstores at the airports instead of on the bottom. I was in the airport today flying here from Houston. And they're really nice. They have a bunch of my books, but my books are the bottom row, period.
You'd have been between Grafton and Grisham.
Yeah, come on. I mean, I would be mega rich right now. Mega rich.
But you're doing okay, although I have to say that you really have had, as many writers, a rather rocky path towards an overnight 20-year success story, right?
Yeah.
And your guy, Dismas Hardy, I was thinking about that the other day, because you and I actually have walked the Dismas Hardy path almost the same time. I opened the Poison Pen in 1989. You published
that was the
Dead
first
Irish.
book.
And so, you know, I remember the first books, and I've walked through them with you.
And you were one of the few people that even had them, I bet.
Yes.
In those days.
Even though I mistook you for John Straley upon our first chance meeting on the street. It was, in fact, at, I think, the Pasadena BoucherCon. I'm almost sure. And you...
That's where I lived, and I didn't know that my book had been nominated for the best novel.
That's right.
And I was walking around, and people said, good luck tonight. And I'm going, for what? And nobody even, I mean, it was like really weird. I kept saying, it was a rumor. Here I'm walking around, and they said, well, you've been nominated for best novel, you know. I said, I have? Why didn't anybody tell me this? No one told me.
That was for what, your third book?
That was for Dead Irish.
Oh, it was for Dead Irish. Oh, it was best first novel. Okay.
No.
Gotcha. Well,
it was for best novel.
I beg your pardon. That's right, because you'd already written 2 or 3.
I mean, it was a real shockaroo because there was no, well, number one, I hadn't been told. Number two, there'd been no, as far as I know, official notification or listing of it or anything like that. And so I got there, and when I got there, I'm sitting there, and my wife is a big Grafton fan, so she goes, that's Sue Grafton right there. I said, yeah. I said, well, why don't you just say hi? She goes, okay. So she walks over and she says, hi, I'm John Lescroart's, you know, wife, and I'm just a big fan. And Sue goes, well, where's John? She said, he's got to be sitting with us tonight. All the nominees are sitting together. We're going, nominees for what? Larry Block comes over, so it was me and Block and Grafton. And I'm going, geez Louise, what is this? I mean, I'm this, as far as I know, first-time author. I mean, it was really a thrill.
It's exciting. Larry's coming to see us on Saturday.
I hear this new book of his is something.
You know what? It is absolutely fabulous.
I believe it.
It's the very first book in which it isn't that 9/11 is referenced in the book. 9/11 is the springboard for the entire plot, and yet in such a way it's not about terrorism, it's about 9/11's effect on New York. It's a novel about New York. New York is the main character in this book. Right. And then he's got this woman, he kind of does kinky sex and that sort of thing, which is not really...
I've heard a lot about the kinky sex on this tour.
That's not really Larry, well, Larry on the page, maybe Larry in real life, how do I know? But anyway, it is, it's a risky book. But Larry brings it off, and as somebody who lives a lot of her life in New York, as they do, it's you know, something I could really buy into. There've been a couple of others. Jim Fuseli, who writes for Putnam, wrote a really marvelous second novel. He lives in Tribeca. And Linda Fairstein and I, she was sitting in your chair last time we taped. The Bone Vault. Linda and I were talking about the Fuseli novel, and because he wrote really about the effect of 9/11 on Tribeca as a place.
It's so interesting you say this, and I don't mean to swing this to this book right now, but that's what this book is all about.
True.
You know, because I was writing a totally different book when 9/11 happened. Yeah, totally different. And just like everybody else, felt like suddenly what I was doing was irrelevant, and what does all this mean? And you know, after 6 weeks or so of thinking about it, just decided I wanted to write about you know, the new world order and how far you have to be pushed before you retaliate, and the reaction of innocent people to that kind of terrorism. And even though I don't refer to the terrorists, well, I refer to Osama bin Laden a couple of times about being abused by, you know, various implements.
Yes.
But these are the cops talking about him. So we're clearly in a post 9/11 era in this book, and you know, I really wanted to write a different, visceral book than the other ones I've done in this series.
I just wrote another, having miscalled the name of one of your characters, which I have corrected. He is now properly the right name, Mr. Holliday, not Mr. Hardy.
Yeah.
I was writing because we do retrospective, you know, I find the old advertising thing, but I have to mention something 3 times before anybody pays any attention, so we try to follow that rule. And I had just read the introduction to The First Law again, and you mentioned 2 of my favorite writers towards the end, Lauren D. Estelman, whose book, you know, his depiction of the gunfight at OK Corral in Bloody Season, obviously is inspiration to you for the
very much so
tremendous shootout that occurs in this book at Pier 70. And the other is a writer that's not as well known as I think he should be, and I think is terrific, Carson Stroud. And I thought Blackwater Transit, I bullied Patrick, who runs our, one of my staff members who runs our Hard-Boiled Crime Club, into making that, because he had not read Stroud, into making that a pick for that club, because I thought it was such a superb book.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, because what I was trying to do when I knew this book was going to be different, I really knew it was going to be a different format, kind of structure. It's the first 3-part book I've ever written. I mean, it's a very different book. And I really wanted to get some insight into, you know, constructing a thriller that was truly a thriller that led to a, you know, a physical climax.
Explosive
climax. Yeah. And my agent, Barney Karpfinger, who's a great guy, he's also Karsten's agent, and he said, "Have you read Blackwater Transit?" I said, "No, I'd never even heard of Karsten." I mean, a year ago. And he said, "You got to read this book." I said, "If you want to know how a thriller works, this is how a thriller works." He's terrific. I just read his new book. It's Karsten Stroud, and it's Blackwater Transit. Yeah.
Right, but he has a new one out called Cuba, and I'm trying to remember, I just read it. It's absolutely terrific. I got into trouble, actually, picking that book, and this is the sort of little trap you can fall into when you serve a collector-customer base, as some of our book clubs do, and that all the books have to be autographed by the author. And I didn't realize he lived in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And I'm here to tell you it is not easy to ship books to Canada and get them back. They are the only country in the world that charges duty on books.